Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on another episode of Why They Invested Healthcare Edition. I'm joined today by Sunny Kumar, a partner at GSR Ventures. Sunny, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Jared. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, I'm excited we were able to link up and get you on the show, and hopefully it won't be the last. Excited to chat.
Absolutely.
Well, we keep these short and sweet, so let's dive right into it. I'd love if you could tell the audience a little bit about your background, and then from there we can talk about GSR and some of your recent investments.
Sure, be my pleasure. So I'm actually a physician by training, did my medical training out here at Stanford. I have a background in artificial intelligence and informatics, primarily in the research realm. I decided to pair that with a MBA degree here at Stanford and decided to start my career in entrepreneurship. Founded a company focusing on the natural language processing side with a goal of reducing readmissions for patients with chronic disease. That was my first entree into applying technology in the healthcare realm. And through that, saw that there was real potential to significantly improve how we deliver healthcare. That brought me into the venture side of it, where I now spend the vast majority of my time working with companies that are striving to significantly transform how healthcare is delivered. Now I'm excited to tell you about a couple of the companies that I've worked with in the past few months and years. Let me tell you a little bit about GSR as well. So GSR, early stage technology focused venture fund, about $3.5 billion under management, deploying out of our seventh main fund, which is a $650 million vehicle. Look primarily to lead investments in Series A, Series B stage companies, occasionally do some first time seed and Series C companies as well. Do invest across a variety of different sectors, but really focusing on healthcare technology these days, where we're looking to lead or co lead those investments. And again, that emphasis on truly transformative companies. So, not that interested in companies that are looking to change healthcare by 2%, 3%, but really ones that want to transform healthcare delivery by 2x, 3x, 5x, in some cases 10x or even 100x or more, and that emphasis really on scale. So every company that we invest in needs to have that path to uh, scaling to revenues $1 billion or more. That's the kind of impact that we're looking for really across the spectrum. And I can give you a couple of examples in our portfolio that we've invested in recently. So one company that we've actually placed a relatively large investment in is a company called Medable in the decentralized clinical trial space. This is a sector that's been building up over time, but recently has now seen a truly breakthrough in adoption. So, and Medable has been fortunate to actually drive that breakthrough forward. This is a company that we've actually been involved with now for some time, but actually have had the fortune to lead and co-lead several of the last rounds, including their most recent Series D, which is a little bit round co-led by GSR, Tiger Global, and Blackstone. That most recently valued the company at a $2.1 billion valuation. But the reason that got us so excited about the company was the fact that we've now seen the entire industry shift from being one that looked at this technology as something that potentially could see some level of adoption, could see some ability to shift from a model where patients may eventually go to a decentralized or hybrid clinical trial environment to one where there's now significant levels of adoption. And there are a couple of different factors underpinning that, but the biggest of which is that patients really wanted to use this technology. And we now are seeing health systems, providers, and most importantly, the actual folks that are running these clinical trials, the pharmaceutical providers and the CROs, now seeing real value being created here. And that's led to a massive surge in adoption. If you look prior to the COVID period, it was really only 2, 3, 4% of clinical trials that were using some degree of decentralization. If you look today, the levels are now almost every single pharmaceutical company is using some degree of decentralization. And if you look at the trial level, probably about 50 or 60% of trials have decentralization embedded in them. And that number is only expected to go up over time. That doesn't necessarily mean every trial is fully decentralized yet, so there's still a huge amount of growth potential in this sector and industry, but we do expect this entire space to have huge future potential to grow. And at the end of the day, that's just driven by the fact that there's immense value being created here as patients want to be able to receive this type of care in their own home, to be able to bring in patients that were previously not able to get access to these trials. There's no reason why a clinical trial needs to be restricted just to the trial site, and even more importantly, restricted to a trial site that may only happen in a big academic medical center. By going to a decentralized model, you can bring in far more patients, increase diversity, increase inclusion, increase retention. I think that's the mission of a company like Medable, all with the goal of bringing more therapies to patients faster than was previously possible.
Yeah, it's definitely, and you were able to, you've been involved now with the company for a little while now, right? It's been, how long exactly has it been?
Our first investment in the company was done in early 2020, so it's been
Yeah, about
about
2 years.
2 years
Yeah.
now.
Um, and would you say they were on the earlier end at the time when you invested in them, or were they right kind of in your sweet spot?
They were a great example of a company that had, from our perspective, really just built out that product market fit, but we're still on the early side of commercialization. This was also partially just due to the market still being early on the adoption cycle. But from our perspective, this was a market that had huge potential, but overall was still early from the adoption curve. From our perspective, we saw that Medable had the right team, the right technology, the right product, and it was just a matter of the market catching up to them. We were very fortunate in that the market caught up very quickly due to some of the factors that I mentioned. But looking at the landscape, looking at the company, to us, it was clear that this was the company that was very well positioned to win.
Well, congrats on getting in at the time that you did, and continuing to have that strong relationship with them that you were able to participate again. I'd like to shift focus to one of your other investments if we can right now. I know one of them you were talking to me about was Alpha Medical. Can you tell us a little bit more about Alpha Medical and then why you invested in them?
Absolutely. So Alpha Medical is a asynchronous telemedicine provider with a focus on the women's health population. And what we really love about this ties to that core thesis that we have at GSR, which is how to really transform how healthcare is delivered. So when we look at telemedicine in general, I think telemedicine solves a major problem. So if you look at many of the very well-established companies which we respect, such as Teladoc or Doctor on Demand, they solve this critical problem in the world, which has to do with access. How do you actually see a physician? And telemedicine, whether it's on a call like this, which can mimic that Zoom experience, it solves this problem of, hey, the doctor may be somewhere very far from me, may be hard for me to get there. Let me solve that with a video type interface. The challenge with that, though, is if you actually look at the type of interaction that you have with that physician, if you look at the cost structure inherent in that, it actually doesn't change it very much. The time you spend with the doctor is actually fairly similar. The overall cost to the system is very similar. And as a result, if you're trying to change the cost structure in healthcare, telemedicine by itself doesn't do that. What Alpha does is it uses asynchronous telemedicine. So a patient will go to a mobile app or web app interface, actually tell in this form, let the physician know what's going on, what his or her problem may be, and then have the physician review that on their own time, determine if there's a medical issue, come up with a diagnosis, and then if appropriate, prescribe a treatment. By doing so, they can actually change the cost curve significantly. And by changing that cost curve, actually provide significant savings to the system and actually directly to the patient. And this is key. By providing that significant cost curve savings, they can actually change the dynamic of how healthcare is delivered. And this is actually seen directly right now. So in Alpha's case, they're able to address a patient population, those that may be underinsured or uninsured, and actually provide that care far more cheaply than it would be for those patients to receive care anywhere else. So you can go online, receive your diagnosis far faster than it would be if you were to get that care anywhere else, and far more inexpensively than it would be, especially if you're uninsured or underinsured. And that value proposition is incredibly compelling to a wide swath of the population, especially those that may be in a part of the country that otherwise may be underserved. And we're finding that that value proposition is increasingly resonant. It's interesting to see, and somewhat unfortunate that this population may otherwise not have gotten that type of attention, but increasingly we're seeing that there's more and more attention being paid and saying, hey, we need to make sure that we're serving the entirety of the country, that we don't leave anybody behind, and we can use technology to make sure that they receive just as good care, if not better care, than what we would do as kind of the standard, while making sure that we can do so in a cost efficient manner, so that if cost is not a barrier to receiving high quality medical care. So this is something that we're very passionate about, and if we can do that with technology, making sure that equity is something that is paramount, that's something that we absolutely believe at GSR, and something that we believe that technology can absolutely accomplish.
And I know um, there was one other thing that we wanted to be able to touch base here with you today. We wanted to go into in terms of also if outside entrepreneurs that aren't within your ecosystem, right? They feel that they match the criteria that you're talking about here today. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you? I know a lot of VCs say it really. I know a lot of it has to come from another like entrepreneur within their network. Like, but how do you structure things at GSR?
No, we're actually very open. So we're happy to take inbound all the time. The best way to get a hold of me is email. So my first name and last name, Sunny Kumar at gsrventures.com, is the best way to get a hold of me. We are busy, but I think if you can send me an email with a pitch, I'm always happy to go through it. And I think that's usually the best way to get hold of me. Sometimes if something's not in scope, I'll let you know. But if it is in scope for us, I'm more than happy to take a look at it.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast today and sharing some information about these investments that you made today, what they're doing, why you decided to invest, and also what's the best way to approach you. Hopefully, we can have you on again soon to talk about future investments and just we're starting to do some panels too. So hopefully, we can get you on with some other VCs to talk about kind of industry trends and where things are heading. We're about to do a huge episode with four of the biggest names in virtual care on at the same time, which I'm really excited about to kind of talk about a big topic that I know everyone's going to be interested in. But really appreciate you coming on here today and can't wait to stay in touch.
Jared, it's truly my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.